This is Road Noise, Life 1 Mile at a Time, episode number 71. Hi there, and welcome again to another episode of Road Noise Life 1 Mile at a Time. I'm your host, Michael Blackston, and you are sitting alongside me in the passenger seat as I commute to and from my work all over the southeastern United States, and together we're going to learn to live life 1 mile at a time. I'm glad you're with me this morning. If you're a new listener and you hear something under the sound of my voice, kind of a rumble, that's just the noise from the road, hence the reason I call it road noise. And I also want to welcome anybody who's watching this on YouTube. Hello. I'm going to not be able to look at the camera a whole lot because, well, not anything more than just a glance every now and then, because I've got to keep my eyes on the road. As you can tell, I am driving. It's 6:55 in the morning Eastern time on what day is it? It's a Wednesday, and this is actually the second day in a row that I've recorded an episode of this podcast. Yesterday, I recorded episode number 70, and I really didn't expect to be recording episode 71 the very next day. But there's a really good reason that I'm headed back from Elberton to Alabama 2 days in a row. Because yesterday I was headed from Elberton, where I'm from, to Carbon Hill, Alabama. And I recorded the episode of the podcast. Everything was good. I was listening back to it on the computer as I drove, and I came into Birmingham, and I stopped in Birmingham. There's a little gas, or it's not a little, it's a big gas station, one of those truck stop travel plazas, and it's where I always stop and get gas before I get on to 78 corridor going between Birmingham, Alabama, and where I always work in Carbon Hill or Jasper, Alabama, or Winfield, Alabama, and that's the three places I was going this week, and I still am going this week. But when I stopped to get gas there, I realized while I was in the middle of pumping gas, it just dawned on me. It hit me, a wave of dread spread over me. I realized, I believe, I have left all of my work equipment back in Elberton at the place I was working last week. Now, I've been doing this for 10 years, and that has never happened. Almost a couple of times, but never did. I've always been very conscious of it. However, I checked my trunk, and sure enough, empty. All of my stuff was still at one of the granite sheds in Elberton. And the reason is because I had worked there on Friday, and I thought I was going to go back on Monday. And so I just left my stuff over the weekend instead of packing it up and putting it all back in my car. But I ended up not having to go on Monday. Something happened. We had a delay with some layouts, and I needed to get some approvals and couldn't work on them on Monday until I got the approvals, so I had to reschedule those. And I didn't think about that all of my equipment was still there. And I just took off Tuesday morning yesterday, and I am going to have to get in the other lane. I do this all the time in this same spot. The road just kind of has some dips in it in the right lane, so I have to get in the left lane because otherwise I sit here and talk like this. Anyway, left all my equipment, so I drove, it's 4 hours. It's 4 hours from Elberton to Birmingham, and I drove 4 hours, got in onto the other side of Birmingham, put in my gas, realized that, and I had to turn around. I had to call all of my people and say, look, we're going to have to be a day delayed. I've got to go back to Elberton, and I'm going to have to pick up all of my stuff. And that was not a good feeling. And let me tell you, by the time I got back home after driving 4 hours this way, well, actually longer than that, it was more like five and a half, because I had already, it wasn't a great morning yesterday anyway. I had planned to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and head there, because in Atlanta, or I have to drive through Atlanta to get there. And if you don't leave at 4 o'clock where I live, the traffic's already back to back going through Atlanta when you get there at 6, because it takes me 2 hours to get from my house to Atlanta. And so if you get there at about 6 o'clock, traffic's already back to back, but it's still flowing. It really hasn't backed up and bottlenecked in places until just a little bit after that. So if I get started anywhere past 4:15, I'm going to get bottlenecked up in traffic in Atlanta, and it will drastically increase my drive time. And that's what happened yesterday, because I forgot to set my alarm yesterday, the night before, for 4 o'clock, and my wife woke me up, and I explain all this, I think, in episode 70. I think I explained this yesterday when I recorded this episode, but I was late already, so I'd already had to call my first customer and say, I'm going to be late today. I got an itch. Something keeps itching me. It's like a hair's out of place or something here. Anyway, I had already called that customer and told them I'm going to be late. Then I had to call them again and tell them I wasn't even going to be able to come yesterday. And so that's twice they had to call their customer, because I had an appointment to meet their customer to go over what was going on in the stone. It was a big mess. The good thing about it is it provided me the opportunity to see my son's band concert. He had 2 end of the school year concerts this week. Monday night he had his chorus concert, and I'm so proud of him. The chorus did really well. I need to, or I'm intending to draft a letter to his chorus teacher, who's a personal friend of mine anyway. Allison and I have, or Miss Di and I have a personal relationship. We've done theater shows and stuff together, and done a lot of stuff like that together. So we know each other very well, but she is the chorus teacher for the high school and the middle school chorus, and she is doing a fantastic job. She is really knocking it out of the park with these kids. My son's in 7th grade, and I'm just so excited that he is learning this from her. So they did a great job on Monday, but yesterday was his band concert, and I wasn't going to be able to make it. And it was going to be the second year in a row that I wasn't going to be able to make his band concert. And whereas that's just part of the job, it's still, it bums me out. And it bummed him out, too. Even though my mom and my stepdad were going to be there, and my sister and my daughter, and of course, his mom, my wife, were all going to be there. I wasn't, and he wanted his dad to be there. And so he was so excited when he found out I was going to be there. And I got to see his concert last night, and same thing. The band teacher for the middle school is... Well, for the middle school and the high school, they're 2 different guys, but the band teacher for the high school is knocking it out of the park with our high school band as well. They are getting excellent scores in competitions and stuff. They're doing really well, and that was not always the case in Elberton. But the band teacher for the middle school is doing a fantastic job as well, and he is really getting a good foundation for these kids as they move on into the high school, and I think he's a big reason that they're doing so well once they get into high school. So that's all kind of explaining why I'm back on the road this morning. I had to kind of step back and punt, restart the whole week, move everything ahead, and this morning I did set my alarm for 4. This morning I did get up on time, and like I said, now it's 7:02, and I am well past Atlanta, on my way, heading on I-20 West, heading into Alabama. In fact, in just a minute, I'm going to be crossing over the line into Alabama. So let's get on with this episode. I do want to mention one more thing you may or may not notice. I won't know until I listen to it back and do some post-production, but there may be a little bit of a different sound in the quality of this recording, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a lot better. And the reason for that is I had bought a mixer a year ago. And about 2 months after I bought it, about 3 weeks after I bought it, I dropped it on the ground. And it messed up and broke in one section of it, or one part, which was the headphone jack. And because these things are made in China now, they're made really quickly and simply. It's made by Peavey, and although it is a good mixer, it does well when it's working right. I had to go in it and do some kind of rigging to get it, because I dropped it on the area that holds the little jack. I think I had a headphone plug-in in it, so it kind of compacted when it hit the ground, and it broke that piece. And so it was jiggling around, and I had to secure it, make sure everything was right. And for a while it wasn't working. Well, during that time, while I was fixing it, I misplaced the power cable and thought that I was going to have to throw this whole mixer away, because I couldn't find the power cable, and I couldn't find one that worked for it. I didn't want to fry the thing by using the wrong thing, and I thought I'd be able to find something universal, but I wasn't able to, until I finally was cleaning out my trunk and found I had packed it away in a crate that I keep in my trunk, and I found it. So I say all that to say I wanted to be able to run this hands-free headset through a mixer because I don't like the sound of it. When I run it straight into my computer as I'm recording this podcast, it's got a really weird, tinny, kind of far away sound, and it would probably be okay. But I had been before doing this podcast with a handheld Shure SM58 microphone, a fantastic microphone, and it had a great sound to it. Even though you still heard the road noise under it, I really didn't have to do a lot with my voice as far as making it sound good and rich, or at least natural. But when I got this hands-free headset, which is made by Audio-Technica, I didn't try it out. I didn't test it, and I just assumed because, this was nearly a $200 microphone, I figured it's going to be great. Well, it's fine if you run it into a mixer and you can play with the gains and the lows and the highs and the mids and all that. You can make it sound really good, but it's made for on stage more than audio production recording. So I kind of was in between a rock and a hard place. I wanted to have both of my hands, even though you can see if you're watching on the YouTube channel that I talk with my hands a lot. I need to keep them on the wheel more. You also see me messing around my mouth with my tongue. I've got a piece of bacon stuck in it, or it wasn't bacon, it was a Slim Jim I ate. But it was rolling around in there, driving me crazy. Anyway, the sound is different, maybe, and hopefully a little bit better now that I finally got everything situated, and I'm not running this microphone right into the computer. I'm running it from the mixer into the computer. So my setup is this. I've got the microphone running to the mixer. The mixer is plugged in to a portable power supply that I use it's one of those things that's about yay big, and it's a jump starter for a car, and just a portable power supply. You can pump up your tires with it. You can jump start your car with it. And it's got a plug-in. So I'm running the mixer power to that, and I'm able to do that. It doesn't make noise. I had a power inverter I tried that with once before, and it made so much noise. It put too much noise in the background. It makes no noise. So the mixers run to that, and then from the mixer straight into the computer. And this way I'm able to play with the gain and the low end and the high end and the mids, and I've got it how I think it's going to sound best going into the computer. So we're going to see. I don't know whether or not it's something I'm going to keep, but if it sounds like I'm hearing in my headphones, you'll notice I'm wearing headphones now as well, then if it sounds like this, it's going to be, I think, really good. But you're still going to hear the noise of the road because I can hear the road under this microphone. So let's get started with the main topics. I know I kind of went out of the way. That's something I'm trying to learn to do with this podcast, is not so much fluff and not so much stuff you're not interested in. But then again, this podcast is just about me and my life. And so I think if you're an audiophile, you might be interested in the technical stuff. If you're a person who's interested in just the nitpicky stuff of everyday life, you might have been interested in the stuff that I just talked about and the reasons why I'm doing a second one in a row and all the stuff with going to Birmingham. But if you're listening for what I've got listed in the topics, you're saying, Michael, get on with it. So let's go do that. And the first thing I want to talk about today is the ketogenic diet. I told you in previous episodes that I was on a diet, Health Journey 2017. I started that before I took my hiatus, and that's what I'm calling it. I originally was killing the show, but I brought it back. I'm just going to call it a brief hiatus for a couple of months. And I had started Health Journey 2017, and it started off rocky. From the very first time that I mentioned that on the show, it started off rocky. The very first night, I think I recorded it from a hotel room, and I was talking about all this great stuff I'm going to do to be healthy. And the very next day, I blew it. And then the very next day, I blew it. And then I got on the podcast, and I talked about that a little bit. And I said, but I'm getting back on the horse. And then the very next day, I blew it. That's a struggle that people who have struggled to lose weight knows very well. Anyone who's had this problem knows it very well. And I'm not morbidly obese. In fact, I'm doing very well now, thanks to, in part, a ketogenic diet. What is a ketogenic diet? Well, I'm going to, in the show notes, give the actual definition, but I didn't want to have to go learn a definition from Webster's dictionary, and I didn't want to read it on a piece of paper while I'm trying to drive. So I'm just going to give you a basic skeleton idea of it. It is low fat. I'm sorry, no, that's wrong. It's low carb, high fat, high protein, low carb, low sugar, almost no carb, no sugar. I'm not following that to the letter. Ketogenic, the keto part of it, is in reference to when your body goes into what is called ketosis. Now, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but if you follow the diet to the letter, then within a few days your body will go into what is called ketosis, and that is when it is burning the optimal amount of fat, and you're losing your optimal amount of weight. It's when you are at the peak of what you should be doing. And if you mess up and start eating a bunch of carbs, your body will go out of ketosis, and you can tell, and it won't do as much. Now, I have been doing the ketogenic diet, or a version of it, my kind of version of it, which is not as low of carbs and as low of sugar, because I recently found out I was either borderline or right at, well, I'm not even borderline. I have to be honest, I am a diabetic, but it's not so bad that I even have to take insulin or anything. I'm taking one pill for that, one pill because my cholesterol was high, and then I'm taking a blood pressure pill as well. And that mixture with a proper diet and good exercise, he said he wanted me to get down to about 165 to 170 and see where we are, then I should be able to reverse it, the doctor says. He thinks, he hopes, we pray. But it requires me to be serious about it. So since then, I have become much more serious. And as of this morning, I am at 181 pounds. I was there yesterday, but when I realized I had to turn around in Birmingham and go all the way back, I got mad and just got a greasy cheeseburger, which the burger was fine. You can have all the fat you want, and especially all the protein you want, but let me wet my whistle, or I'm going to be making a whole bunch of mouth noises that'll drive everybody crazy, including myself. But I shouldn't have had the bun. And then I went to Burger King and I got a double Whopper and that sandwich only. And then I went to Arby's and I got a large order of their spicy curly fries because I love them, and a large Coke. Well, there was two baddies, right? There were three in all of those. The bun and the burger. I'm not supposed to have any fries because potatoes are high in starch and high in carbs. And then sugar from the Coke. I'm trying to cut that out completely as well. So that wasn't great, and because I didn't eat perfectly yesterday, I didn't gain any weight, but I stayed where I was when I weighed yesterday morning. But it's good news because I had gotten back up to 190 pounds before I started back doing this podcast, and my goal is 167 to 170, and I'm down to 181, so that's 19 pounds that I have lost here in just a month and a half. And I'm feeling great. I'm looking great. I'm having to be careful and not look at myself in the mirror when I go to the bathroom and just kind of give the smolder. Look at there. And it's not from arrogance. It's just because I haven't been this small since I was in high school. And I'm 43 years old, going on 44. I haven't been this small since I was in high school. And I have wanted since then to... I've tried for 20 some odd years to get back down to the proper weight, and to be not only just down to the proper weight, but to be healthy, to diet and exercise, and to work out, and to kind of start building my muscle tone. And that's what I'm really starting to focus on now that I'm getting used to this diet and becoming happy with it, and able to do it. Now I'm going to start focusing on building up my muscle tone a little more. So weight will probably start coming back, but as long as the inches are still coming down to where I need them, and the weight goes up because of muscle growth, then that's good weight building. So that's the ketogenic diet, and that's what I've been doing. And what I'm going to do is I'll get the definition of ketogenic in the show notes, and then I will find a good website, probably the main website that my wife uses. I'm not sure what it is, but I'll put that in the show notes. So just go to roadnoisepodcast.com. If you're interested in this, it has worked like a charm for my wife, like a charm for me. I highly recommend it if you've got weight to lose. It's hard to get started at first, but if you push through, all of a sudden you'll realize through seeing the results and through being able to your body getting used to a healthier way of eating, you'll start to want to do it, and it's a cycle. So go ahead or not a cycle, but a process. So go ahead and give it a shot if you think it's something you'd like. If you want to, I do highly suggest you talk to your doctor about it first, but it's not a fad diet. It is a way of living. I'm not going to get down to my goal weight and then decide, okay, well, now I can have all of the junk and crap that I need. I get all the carbs I need through proper carbs in the proper vegetables and the proper meats. But the thing is, I don't have to give up burgers. I just don't necessarily have to eat the bun. And the thing is, I'm getting to where I'm starting to prefer the burgers without the bun. I'll dip them in ranch dressing, and man, it's delicious. But on occasion, like I said, I'm not doing it perfectly, so mine is going a little slower maybe than my wife's would. And she's having a hard time with it right now because she's not as mobile as she was, because if you listen to last episode, I explained what happened with her surgery on her Achilles tendon. So right now she's kind of in a holding pattern. I don't think she's gaining, but she's not really losing anything because she's not able to exercise much or anything. But you don't even necessarily have to exercise at first to see any effects of this. Although, you need to exercise. You need to keep your body moving. I'm not saying not to. I'm just telling you that you can lose weight ketogenically without having to walk every day. Your body will adjust. And what your body wants is proteins. It uses proteins to grow and to build muscle and to help you work out. You don't need refined sugar. You don't need extra refined carbs. You can get all the carbs you need through the ketogenic diet. A lot of people say, well, you got to have some carbs. Yes, you do, but they don't have to come in the form of buttermilk biscuits. If you like that stuff and don't want to give them up, I understand. I had a hard time for a while. This is just telling you how I've done it so far. I've lost 19 pounds in the last month and a half. I feel great, and I have changed my way of eating, or at least almost, and I'm getting better and better about it every day. So I highly recommend the ketogenic diet if you struggled and you're looking for a good, satisfying way to lose weight and not be forced to only eat a little bit every day, because you can eat as much of the right stuff as you want in this diet. And what you'll find is as you start doing it, proteins fill you up faster than empty calories. Empty calories fill you up. It takes more to fill you up, and then they're gone very shortly, and you're hungry again. With proteins, it doesn't take as much to fill you up, and it lasts a lot longer. So it works in both of those ways. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is, since I started the podcast back, I have hired an employee. I guess you would call it hiring an employee. It's not really as much that I don't have her on, like, payroll books, but I decided that I was spending too much time when I was supposed to be spending time with my family. I was spending it working. I work 3 to 4 days a week outside of Elberton, on the road, away from my family. And I decided I'm going to try to keep that to 3 days a week as much as possible. And hopefully, in the next few weeks, I'm going to audition for Guys and Dolls at our theater. And so it's probably going to only be able to be 3 days a week for about 3 months. It'll be Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, because I have to keep rehearsal dates open on Mondays and Tuesdays. But that's neither here nor there. 3 days of the week is my target, and on occasion I have to do 4. And when I'm home, I want to be home, because I'm away from my family completely those 3 days. The other days, I want to be able to focus on my family. It's very important to me. And I do well enough now that I can work 3 days a week and don't have to. unless I work in Elberton 2 of those days a week. And that's lately what I've been doing. I've got places now in Elberton where I can work as well. I'm usually booked the 2 days that I'm home. But that means the days that I'm with my family or my family time when I'm not working needs to be family time. And I found that I was staying so busy doing layouts for pending work that I was having to do that during my family time, and that wasn't a good thing. I wanted to be able to go ahead and spend the right time with my family, so I decided it was time to hire someone to do my layouts for me, or contract with someone. That's actually what I'm doing. And I worked with her before at the place that trained me. She was kind of an intern there, I think, right out of high school. And I've been a newlywed. She's only been married for 2 or 3 years now, I think. And I said, well, this girl, she's on my Everything Arts group on Facebook, and an active member of that, and a really phenomenal artist, on top of the fact that she knew the process of doing layouts through having worked with the lady that trained me in this job. And she wasn't doing anything employment-wise with her art, and she was a newlywed. I've been there before. I know that when I was a newlywed, I don't know her financial situation, but I know when I was a newlywed, or roughly a newlywed, I needed all the money I could get. And I would have loved for someone to offer to allow me to do their layouts for them. And in fact, when I first got started in this, I did for a guy. So I called her and I asked her if she'd be interested in doing this. I gave her the amount I was willing to pay per layout and told her what I would be expecting, and she jumped at the chance. And so, since I took my hiatus, I have hired or contracted. Well, I haven't even contracted with. I haven't signed a contract, but she is basically doing contract work for me on an as-needed basis. I get the information from a customer for a layout, and I send it to her. And it's really neat the way we've worked this out. I was going to try to figure out the logistics of paying her. Like, do you want me to pay you cash? I mean, I'm going to send her a 1099 at the end of the year, but do you want me to pay you cash, or do you want me to write you a check? How do I get that to you? And I talked to my wife, and she said, take another drink here. My wife, who is very familiar with banking, said, why don't you use Pop Money? And I had not even heard of Pop Money, but basically Pop Money is an application that you can use where you put as the person sending money, you put your bank account information in there. It is secure. It's very secure. And through Pop Money, you can send somebody through text message an amount of money. And they go and follow the directions on the text message, and they can retrieve their money. However, through their bank, I think it's through their bank. It's a way to transfer money from bank to bank through an app, through text message, and it is phenomenal. I don't have to worry about getting a check in the mail to her. And so what we agreed on is I said, I'll send you the information. You send me an email with a digital copy of your layout, because she does it on her iPad. And as soon as I get that, if everything's correct on it, I'll send the layout up to my customer, and in the same moment, or in the same kind of transaction right then at the same time, I'll pop you your money. And it has worked like a charm. So it has been a weight off my shoulder, a tremendous weight off my shoulders. You just can't imagine. And hiring her may be one of the reasons I felt free enough to start this podcast back up. Because at the time I quit it, I was inundated. Not only was I out of town all the time, I was having to do layouts while I was in the hotel room. And layouts on the weekends. I had no time. I didn't have time to edit a podcast, or do the show notes for a podcast, or do the cover art for each episode of a podcast, or the SEO, any of the things that I need to do. I didn't have time to do that because I was inundated with layouts. And my layout artist now has taken that from me. She's taken that burden, and she just has no idea what she means to me. Even though I've tried to put it into words and tell her how grateful I am for the work she's doing, because she's fantastic. She nails every layout. She'll send it to me and she'll say, I'm worried about this one. And I'll look at it and say, looks great to me, and my customers will call me back and say, looks great to me. She does a great job, and so I'm not going to say her name because I don't know that she would want me to. But if she does, then in a future episode, I'm going to say her name and give her a proper shout out. But to my layout artist, if you hear this episode, you know who you are, and I just can't tell you how valuable you are to me. And I thank you so much for the work you're doing. You are such a huge help to me. It's not just touching my career, but touching my life, because you have enriched my life through helping me out this way. So let's give you the STD review. What? I'm going to find a sound effect. A what? Sound effect that I can put in there so that I don't have to just keep going, what? The STD review, STD stands for Stuff to Do Review. And this is another movie to go see, and I highly recommend Guardians of the Galaxy. If you're a Marvel person, especially, if you're a Marvel person, you've probably already seen Guardians of the Galaxy. There aren't many who enjoy the Marvel Universe who didn't file out to see this already. But Guardians of the Galaxy 2 turned out to be a really good movie, a good sequel. I don't know which I enjoyed better, the first one or the second one. My son and I were debating that, and we're kind of on the fence. They are both really good. The Marvel Universe, one thing that I think that they are winning over DC with is they've got enough action in there, but they are also adding the comic element. DC just doesn't hit the mark with that. They're so serious about themselves, and this is just my opinion, that they're missing the mark comically. And to me, a good production, whether it's a live stage show or a movie, a good fluid one that has flow, takes you on a roller coaster ride. It brings you up with excitement. It brings you down with sadness. It brings you back up with laughter. It brings you up even further with excitement and back down with something poignant. It's a roller coaster ride. It's hills and valleys of emotion. And because you are on that and you're never feeling the same thing throughout this 90 minutes or however long the movie is, it feels like you're on a ride. It's exciting. If you've got a movie that goes up and it's nothing but excitement and danger and explosions 100% of the time, your whole time you're kind of like this and you're tense, and you come away with a little bit of a tense feeling. And if you're like me, I like that roller coaster ride. You may be different. You may like the intense the entire way, but I just like that roller coaster ride, and I think Marvel is nailing it with that. Guardians of the Galaxy just is the continuation of the Guardians of the Galaxy from the comic book series, and Star-Lord meets his dad in this. I don't think I'm spoiling anything now, but the whole idea and storyline behind his father, I won't give you, because if you're not familiar with that storyline and that plot point, then it will be interesting and really kind of cool. But it was a good movie. I thought it was really well done. I really like some of the ways they turned the plot within it in the whole story arc of both movies of the Guardians of the Galaxy. There's just a lot going on. My voice broke like I'm in puberty or something. Really good movie, in my opinion. I give it thumbs up. I'll be buying the DVD just as soon as it comes out. The question I want you to ponder this week is this. Well, actually, you know what? Let me go over my idea really quick, the answers that I came up with for the questions to ponder for the last two episodes. And the first one I asked you in episode 69 was, give me 3 things you would change right now about your life if you had one of those easy buttons. You could just push the button and it was easy. It just changed. And I had to think about this because I didn't want to just throw some basic answers out. I wanted it to be some things that I seriously think if I only had 3 shots, these 3 things would be good choices for me. Number 1, I'd be more giving. Now, it dawned on me, some people might think that I'm asking what would they change about their past. I'm not asking you to change something about your past, because I started doing this and my first thought was to go into I would have joined the military. But then if you change things about your past, it would probably change your present. And I wouldn't want to do that. I would not change a thing about my life, because I would then be afraid that, well, I know things would be different, but I might not have my daughter or my son. Might not even have my wife. I might not even be here. So I want you, if you're ever pondering this and you want to get back to me, keep this to things that you would change about your personality, maybe about your lifestyle, things that you could change for the better at the present. And so number 1, I'd be more giving. I think I'm still too greedy at times. I still hold on to my money way too easily. I am a little bit, I know there's reasons to be cautious about people asking me for money, strangers and people who seem to be homeless and stuff, because in my travels I see it all the time. People constantly asking for a handout. People that I pretty much know, even though you can't really know everyone's heart, you can discern most of the time whether or not you need to be giving to somebody. Most of the time when I'm asked that, if I offer, like if someone asks me for money for a meal, I'll tell them I don't give cash, but I'll get them a meal. And most of the time they'll refuse that. And so you know where they're coming from with that. But there are times when there's a question in my mind and I've got $2 or $3 extra and I can say, you know what you do with this is not my business. All I know is you've asked for something and I'm going to give it. The Bible says if a man asks for your shirt, give him your shirt and then also give him your coat. And I'm not behaving that way. I'm not setting a Christian example. Even in times when my discernment tells me this really could be someone who has a need that I can supply. And so not only do I wish I would change that if it was an easy button, it's not an easy thing to change. It is something I'm going to pray about for my life, that God would instill in me a greater heart for giving and a greater heart for helping those in need. So I'm going to ask for that, and that is number one that I'd change if I had an easy button. Number two, my focus would be more prioritized. I keep so many irons in so many fires, it's hard to prioritize my focus. I try to, and to finish one task before I start another. But then there are times that, for whatever reason, I have to kind of switch them back and forth. And I wish I could, if it were easier, prioritize that focus. It's not easy, but if I had an easy button, I would do that because I think I would get more done and be able to reap the rewards of those finished products if I could prioritize my focus. And then number three, a healthier lifestyle. Even though I told you that I'm having a healthier lifestyle now and I'm learning to do it, it's still not easy. If I could just push a button and all of a sudden I was walking 5 miles a day or working out an hour a day, just crushing it at the gym and never eating wrong just by pushing an easy button, I would absolutely do that, and that would make a world of difference in my life. So that's going to be number three, healthier lifestyle. And then in episode number 7, I asked, what would you like to be doing in the next 5 years? What would you seriously like to be doing? Not some pipe dream you don't believe you could really do just to hear yourself giving word to a fantasy. What would you seriously like to be doing? And what is it possible you could be doing in the next 5 years if you apply yourself? And this is something to really think about. This is something to ponder beyond the podcast. Because if this is where you'd like your life to go, and it is possible, then what's stopping you from taking the steps to get there? And mine is working from home 100% of the time. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to be doing, and I think that there are a lot of things that can get me there, kind of a conglomeration. Now, that's part of me having my focus in a lot of different areas. It's called diversifying, and I do believe that there is some value into diversifying. So I am trying to focus on the areas that I think are going to be the most successful in diversification. And in the next 5 years, that's kind of my goal, is to be working at home full time, not traveling anymore. So here's this week's question to ponder. If you could go back and do one thing differently, just one thing differently, what would it be? Now keep in mind, like I just said, going back in time changes everything. So be careful with this question. If you like the way things are now and nothing to change, then you got to be real careful when you ponder this. And that's why it intrigued me to ask it, because it requires some thought. Because so many things, one little ripple in time, can change everything. So what's the one thing you could do? If the answer is something that might change everything completely, go ahead and answer it that way. But just understand that it has consequences when you go back and change time. So think about that. What would you do if you could go back and do one thing differently in your life? And I'll talk about that next week. and give you what I think. And if you have an answer to any of these questions that I've asked in the previous episodes or this episode, don't worry. You haven't missed your opportunity. These are evergreen questions, and that means you can ask them to me now, or you can answer them for me now, or you can answer them for me 3, 5, 10 years from now. All I want you to do is make sure you ask the question, and if possible, reference the episode you got it from when you answer it. And then I'll discuss your answers on the podcast. So that's it for this episode number 71. If you would like to get in contact with me, I have a voicemail line, I have email address, I've got contact right there on the Facebook page or the web page, and I'm working on a Facebook group. I've got a Facebook fan page, but I'm going to close that down and do a closed group so that it will be a little bit more concentrated with the people that actually listen to the show, and I can communicate with them. So we're going to start a Facebook page. All of that, anything you need, iTunes, subscriptions, all of that stuff, you can subscribe on Stitcher, anything like that. It's really simple. Just go to the website, and that is roadnoisepodcast.com. roadnoisepodcast.com. So until episode number 72, I'm Michael Blackston. Thank you for sitting alongside me in the passenger seat, taking this road trip with me back to Birmingham. I'm not far from Birmingham now, as we learn to live life 1 mile at a time. This is Road Noise, Life 1 Mile at a Time, episode number 71. Keto, help, and separation anxiety. Let's try that again. Blah, blah, blah. Brr.